Now, this is the moment of the year where we take Private Eye off the page and onto the stage. So can I introduce my wonderful cast of stars? Harry Enfield. Jan Ravens.
Yay!
And Lewis MacLeod.
Hello.
Okay.
As it's Christmas, we try and be seasonal, and we start with our notes and queries service, in which we try and answer readers' questions on very important subjects. So, notes and queries.
6-year-old Kevin from Newport Pagnell asks...
At this time of year, I, like a lot of children, wonder how it is possible for one man with his gifts to fly around the world, being everywhere at once, bringing joy and harmony. Could you explain?
Well, Kevin, this is one of the miracles of Christmas, and it's one that I hope you still believe in, despite what cynical adults might say. And actually, we've got the man himself here to answer your question.
Hi, Kevin. It's Keir Starmer here. And I have a magic ability to fly everywhere. From Rio to Washington to Paris and London in a very short space of time. This is because, as Starmer Keirmas, I have a special prime ministerial sleigh made by my father, who... who you may remember was an elvish toolmaker. This allows me to fly greenly with no carbon emissions to bring happiness to every boy and girl around the globe, despite the last 14 years of Tory misrule. No further questions.
Thank you, Father Christmas. 2024 was very much the year of the post office scandal for us at Private Eye, and I thought we would pay our early tribute to the great figure at the centre of it all, someone who is in many ways a saint. And lo, in those days, there was a great preacher and holy woman. And her name was St. Paula. That is called Venables. And she did travel the land persecuting innocent men and women who believed in the office that is called Post. And this continued for many years as she zealously sought out the blameless and the vulnerable and did vent her wrath against them, even unto sending them to prison. And she looked upon her works and proclaimed them to be good.
I have achieved miracles. I am the chosen one to lead the post office into the promised land of abundance, and my reward will be on earth, where bonuses shall fall from heaven like manna.
And she was hailed to be a great champion of the law and the prophets. Thank you very much. But then it came to pass that St. Paula was travelling on the road to Aldwych, where there was to be a public inquiry into these matters. And verily, on the horizon, St. Paula did see a blindingly obvious light. And it spake to her, saying,
Paula, Paula, why do you persecute these innocent people?
And St. Paula did fall to her knees, saying,
I don't recall. I don't know. I wasn't there for that meeting.
And the blindingly obvious light replied,
This isn't very convincing, is it?
But still St. Paula wept and gnashed her teeth, saying unto the heavenly presence,
I blame everyone else. I was just too trusting.
And the men and women from the office that is called Post waxed exceeding wroth. Though being nice people, they did just mutter one to another, tutting and laughing in disbelief, rather than shouting,
Lock her up and throw us away the key!
As would have been entirely understandable. and St. Paula was led away, still blinded to her own manifold wickednesses. And so she was converted from St. Paula to plain the appalling Venables. And people did marvel at this change, saying,
In centuries to come, people will remember this transfiguration, although she probably won't, and will claim she can't recall the detail.
And hats off to the postmasters and mistresses. I was hoping now to read out a Christmas blessing from Paula's great friend, the Archbishop of Canterbury. But sadly, it seems to be lost in the post. So now it's time for something cheerier. It's time for Dumb Britain. This is the feature in Private Eye where we collect real answers to real questions in real quiz shows, collated for us by Marcus Berkman. We start, it's questions from the tipping point, mastermind, the weakest link, the wheel. And so, for convenience, our presenter this evening is Bradley Walsh.
What famous waterfall located in Africa was named in honour of a 19th century British queen?
Niagara.
A quad bike has how many wheels?
3.
In the Beatrix Potter stories, what type of animal is pigling bland?
A rabbit?
Which Commonwealth country has had 2 prime ministers named Malcolm?
Spain.
Who was the Russian leader during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962?
Rasputin.
What was the Christian name of the suffragette whose surname was Fawcett?
Farah.
Which controversial British music impresario was the manager of the Sex Pistols?
Robert Maxwell.
The Kingdom of Lesotho is entirely surrounded by what other country?
Wales.
What is the full name of the piece of music by Vivaldi, the F blank 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 Seasons?
5.
Featured on a Bank of England banknote, which economist wrote The Wealth of Nations?
Milton Keynes.
Which British mountaineer conquered Mount Everest with Sherpa Tenzing Norgay in 1953?
Bear Grylls.
Who succeeded Francois Hollande as President of France?
Vladimir Putin.
Which Labour Party leader was a mine worker at the age of 10?
David Cameron.
What Duke was played by Christopher Plummer in the film Waterloo?
Duke Ellington.
If it's your birthday today, 8th of March, your star sign is a fish. Name that star sign.
Tuna.
A children's book by Henry Williamson is Tarka the what?
The Hun.
Which British naval commander lost his right arm in battle in 1797?
Captain Hook.
Which leader was exiled to islands in the Mediterranean and South Atlantic?
Tony Blair.
Which biblical character danced the dance of the 7 veils?
Jesus. And that's enough Dumb Britain. Thank you very much to Marcus and the compilers. If you are looking for a book to buy a loved one this Christmas, there is an obvious choice, and it will be on sale later in the foyer. But you might prefer a book by Liz Truss, which came out this year, and Private Eye was delighted to run a mini serialisation of Liz Truss's autobiography, 10 Years to Save the West.
In my totes amazeballs work, 10 minutes to write this book, I detail who is to blame for the total collapse of the British economy after my mini budget, which led to the premature end of my premiership. And I can exclusively reveal that it was all the fault of the following: the Blob, Tony Blair, virtue signalling eco-zealots, the anti-growth coalition, the anti-freeze coalition, the Tony Blob, the deep state, the deep fat fryer, the Bank of England, the Bank of Mum and Dad, lefty lawyers, righty lawyers, in-betweeny lawyers, the wokerati, snowflakes, cornflakes, Cadbury's flakes, Flake News, the OBR, the OBN, the OBE, the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the IMF, the IDF, IDS, the IRA, VAR, MFI, MI5, the Jackson 5, the Famous 5, the Secret 7, the BBC, Joe Biden, Joe Pasquale, Joe 90, Jeremy Hunt, the Queen, John Lewis, Ocado, lettuce, everyone I ever worked with, everyone I haven't ever worked with, everyone but me. I know.
Please, Truss. If you want to buy a present that's a bit more mellow and a bit more thoughtful, I wanted to recommend the new book by a top cookery writer. Not a topless cookery writer, because that would be Greg Wallace. No, this is the far classier Nigel Slater. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Autumn trudges towards winter. Mud boots, mud warm on boots already laden with the deep, brown, busky warmth of manure. It is a time of year when I am happy to spend a little while longer in the kitchen. My favourite jumper, do we not all have one, acts as a cookery diary, blossoming with the smudges of a rich assortment of dishes, charting each day, month and year. When it was first presented to me by a very dear friend, it was a smoky kind of beige. But after decades of curries, stews and sizzling stir-fries, it has turned charcoal and crimson, followed by lilac and saffron, lavender, grey, azure and cobalt, cerulean, woad and indigo, azure and translucent cornflower. Few kitchen moments are as peaceful as those spent stirring a puree. Damson, blackcurrant, plum, goldfish, mango, into softly whipped cream. Personally, I always remove clothes to perform this sublime act, and prefer to conduct the ceremony hanging upside down from the flex of my favourite kitchen light. This lends my wrist the necessary gravity to whip the cream with due pressure, whilst affording me a wonderfully topsy-turvy, upside-down view of familiar surroundings. There's a portly bumblebee caught in my kitchen skylight. After a struggle, I rescue him with a long-handled feather duster from Fuckover and gently place him in my skillet. After 2 or 3 minutes, I ladle a light batter over him, browning him on both sides. Served with a tart gooseberry puree and Segovian parsley, bumblebee fritter makes a refreshing mid-morning snack. If, after a couple of swallows, you feel a sharp pain towards the back of your throat, followed by golf ball-sized swelling leading to breathlessness, this may indicate that you got bored before reaching the end of this paragraph and neglected to remove the sting before serving.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Slater. Talking of upmarket features, Private Eye has its own resident poet, E.J. Thribb, who writes obituaries, eulogies, threnodies, in fact. And we'll be having a selection tonight, remembering some of the great figures of the age who left us in 2024. I would like to start with one of my own favourites. This is In Memoriam Tito Jackson, elder brother of Michael Jackson. So, farewell then, Tito Jackson. Not many pop stars are named after the former president of Yugoslavia. But you will be mostly remembered for the Jackson 5, or as it is now, the Jackson 3. Your cause of death was initially thought to be a heart condition, but the coroner has now officially blamed it on the bookie. I do apologise for that. It's not just old formats like poetry that Private Eye does. We're very modern. And we also run the thoughts of top technological titans like Elon Musk. These were his thoughts given to Private Eye before the big, important election of this year.
This is the most important election in human history. The Democrats want to take away your freedom of speech and mine. They want to take away our freedom to tell the truth. Fact, if there is a Democratic Party victory, their stated aim is to force us to speak Mexican and wear sombreros in our homes and workplaces. Have you seen how big sombreros are? This disastrous policy would mean widening our doorways at the cost of billions so that we could go in and out of our houses in this cumbersome headgear. Fact. Widening our nation's doorways will lead to the sudden collapse of up to 50% of our homes. Vote for Trump or die. Fact. For the past 48 years, Elvis Presley has been held against his will in room 247 of the Democratic Party HQ, 430 South Capitol Street, Southeast Washington. I am offering $1 million to the first person to set him free. Vote Trump. Trump must win, win, win. His administration has drawn up emergency plans to save the world. Fact, on day one, the White House plus Rose Garden will relocate to a prime location on the moon. On day two, the US Capitol building will move to Mars. On day three, Donald's beautiful Mar-a-Lago complex will relocate to Jupiter. All courtesy of SpaceX. Vote Trump.
Elon Musk. We did have an election here in the UK too. We had a very important election and we changed Prime Minister. Instead of a dull technocrat who doesn't like politics and kept announcing pledges and targets and getting tetchy about criticism, well, we got a big change. And it wasn't long before new Prime Minister Starmer ran into trouble over political donations. Fortunately, Private Eye was leaked to the entire WhatsApp group of the new government. Sir Keir Starmer.
I want us to concentrate on the important issues rather than gossip and tittle-tattle on about what I'm wearing and who paid for it.
Angela Rayner.
Yeah, everyone should just put a sock in it.
Lord Wahid Ali.
Socks? Who wants socks? Egyptian cotton, designer footwear.
Morgan McSweeney.
The boss is right. No more talk about freebies. The optics are terrible.
Lord Ali.
Optics? Anyone need glasses?
Rachel Reeves.
Let's be honest, PM. It is a bit of a problem.
I can't see it.
What do you need? Varifocal, bifocal, tinted?
It's a media storm. Someone leaked this. I've been stitched up.
Garment alterations, invisible mending, I could sort it.
There's nothing wrong with me taking tickets to the Taylor Swift concert. It was a sellout.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Keir.
And my wife was perfectly entitled to accept the free dresses.
I think she looked like $1 million.
More like $500,000. Wahid only gave us 500,000. Any suggestion of impropriety is nonsense. I don't buy it.
Of course not, Keir. You must not buy anything.
Morgan McSweeney.
It's not a good look, Prime Minister.
What? You don't like the smart casual? How about the suits?
They're all a bit grey.
Don't mention Sue Gray. She's fired. And what about you, Angela? You took a freebie to a disco in Ibiza.
That is unfair and inaccurate. It was not a disco, it was a rave. And anyway, I paid for it next morning with a banging headache. Venom cocktail, 1 bottle of vodka, 1 bottle of Southern Comfort, 10 bottles of blue and a litre of orange juice.
As a lawyer, one could argue that Angela's trip was party business.
Sure was. Party! And I haven't slept since Friday. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Rachel Reeves.
Or perhaps it was a work event, like Keir going to the football.
Work events? I hope no one is comparing me to former freebie-taking, sleazy prime ministers who had no moral compass.
You need a compass, gold, silver, brass, magnetic, digital.
The WhatsApp group. That's the current Prime Minister. In 2024, another former Prime Minister wouldn't leave the stage and decided it would be a good idea to use his column in the Daily Mail to attack the new government in Britain. In Private Eye's office, we have an ironyometer, which I'm afraid broke on that day. This was Boris Johnson on standards in public life.
I say, talk about summertime and the living is sleazy. Or should I say, starmer time and the cost of living is squeezy. Never in the history of British politics has any Prime Minister, make that crime minister, shown himself to be more corrupt, venal, and in the pay of rich donors than Sir Clear Stinker. Can anyone remember a Prime Minister, or should I say Prime Sinister, who is more obviously on the make, amoral, and utterly bent than the man wearing free glasses and a shiny suit in the Rose Garden? Or should I say Pose Garden? Yes, friends, we all know that Sir Sheer Smarmer has shown himself unfit to occupy number 10 Downing Street, where he downs beers and curries before putting on his expensive glasses, which he clearly needs because he can't see what a staggeringly hypocritical humbug he is. Whatever next? Will we see Sir Barmy Starmy arranging £800,000 loans from distant relatives and taking freebie holidays while spaffing millionaires' moolah on soft furnishings and gold wallpaper? How long before Sir Complete Bummer starts holding drunken parties, breaking all the rules, not to mention the kiddies swing in the garden? What a two-faced, lying, fraudulent scumbag I am.
Boris Johnson. Away from politics, sport provided a huge distraction, and the Olympics in France were a huge success. Not for President Macron, obviously, but for British viewers who got to enjoy up-to-the-minute commentary from Claire Balding and colleagues.
So, over to Tom and Bianca for the finals of the freestyle street skateboarding at Montmartre's Superdrome des Dieux.
Oh, my goodness, I don't believe it. The Finnish teenager has just nailed a nolly-ollie-dolly with a fish-faced sausage roll. That's a full 540. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, he's going for a hubble-double voulez-vous, followed by a treble flaky-fakey with a full grinder. Oh no, he's come off on the backside griddle grab. That is a catastrophe.
He was laying down such a great wheel boogie and then whap. No, he's up again. This is unprecedented skateboarding history. The whole of Finland is holding its breath as he goes for the soggy bottom front side with a dogger bank. Yes, yes, yes.
Well, thanks there, Tom and Bianca. We'll be back to the Superdrome for the underwater BMX sailing shortly. But first, it's over to the Jacques Cousteau Centre to Diving for the synchronised men's 6-inch springboard, and we join our commentator, Willie Waving. Over to you, Willie.
And the first pair are Jean Baguette and Oliver Lecoq. They'll be performing a double budgie smuggler with a difficulty rating of 6.9, which could create problems for the American boys Huge Apparatus and Larry Lunchbox, who made a big splash on entry after after their attempt at a manoeuvre known as the triple-double entendre. It's certainly looking very tight. Very, very tight indeed. And the judges are pleased to see them. Or maybe they've just got starting guns in their pockets. Back to you, Claire.
A cheer for the Olympics. As a magazine, we are very happy to republish material from other publications. One favourite is the Nursery Times. Now, we've had big scoops from them this year about dental health in nursery land, with only one tooth fairy for the entire country, and also about the Wizard of Ozempic, who's made all the munchkins lose their appetite and get thin. But the biggest story this year was about farming. Farmers' protest ruined by Mr. Toad.
A huge protest at the centre of Nurseryland was hijacked today when notorious motorist Mr. Toad arrived on his new motor shouting "poop, poop" at a reporter from the BBC, the bedtime broadcasting company. Jeremy Toadson, best known for his high-speed antics, which have repeatedly got him into trouble, has since become a champion of Nurseryland farmers due to his vast estate at Toad Hall in the Cotswolds, which he bought specifically to avoid inheritance tax. He issued a call to arms, saying,
"Don't let the ferrets and weasels from HMRC take over our beloved countryside. Get off my land and buy my book, The Windbag and the Willows." Now available at all good children's bookshops.
The bombastic Toad was joined on the protest by his old friend Nigel Ferrati, who had dressed up in brand new Wellington boots and mustard-coloured corduroy trousers, pretending to be a farmer. Said Ratty,
No, let me finish. Gotta say, there's nothing I enjoy more than messing about in votes.
However, the presence of these celebrity landowners shouldn't take away from the real plight of many farmers, including Old MacDonald, who does indeed have a farm, but can no longer afford any cows, pigs or ducks due to intense pressures on farming finances since Brexit. Said Old MacDonald,
"And on that farm I have some debts. I owe you."
He sings! Sometimes the poet, E.J. Thribb, is moved to write not by the demise of a person, but of an institution. In Memoriam, Reader's Digest.
So, farewell then, Reader's Digest. Famous for condensing great literary works into versions that readers could easily digest. Sadly, your readers began to die off, and now you have as well. And even your truncated texts were too long for the modern reader.
So just in case, we also published a Reader's Digest version of the In Memoriam Reader's Digest poem.
So, farewell then, Reader's Digest.
The royal family. They've had a tough year, though fortunately there has been one successful royal tour of the Antipodean regions. And this royal tour was covered for Private Eye, as ever, by our top royal expert and romantic novelist, Hedda Shoulders. This is King of Troubles, a short story. King Charles and Queen Camilla sat on bamboo thrones festooned with garlands of flowers, sipping from a ceremonial monkey head bowl. Said Charles.
That's delicious. Is it some kind of local coconut liqueur? Is it a speciality of the Gilbert and Sullivan Islands?
No, sire, it's for washing your feet.
Explained his perspiring equerry, Sir Alan Fitztightly.
Yes, of course. Marvellous.
Charles spat out the murky fluid and concentrated on the traditional, largely naked male dancers before him.
Sir Alan, why are they blowing raspberries, sticking out their tongues, and presenting oneself with their bare bottoms.
Charles looked worried.
It's a loyal tribute, sire.
Whispered Charles's custodian of the Colgate, steward of the stinky ink pen, and furious flapper of the royal fan.
You're looking very hot, Sir Alan.
Rasped Camilla.
Though not as hot as the hot equerry, who I gather is going to replace you. What?
Sir Alan bridled at the mention of Major Heartthrob, the bekilted Highland hunk who had taken the royal household by storm.
Shush, you two,
chided Charles.
One is trying to concentrate on what these gentlemen are singing in this moving tribal song of the sea.
The chorus climaxed with a huge shout from the noble warriors as they cried with one voice, "Big fella Windsorwaller, go home!"
They are wishing you a safe onward journey, Your Majesty.
Counselled Sir Alan. Charles wiped away a tear as his royal heart swelled with pride and love.
Just to think, these islands were discovered all that time ago by the ruler of the Queen's Navy aboard HMS Pinafore when it sailed into the Ruddigore Bay.
Charles reflected that all in all, this tour thing hadn't been, what was the word?
Appalling. Yes, that's it. The tour hasn't been appalling.
Later, on the aircraft home, Charles watched through the window as the islands vanished below. Sir Alan interrupted.
As Backstairs Billy used to say when he accompanied your late Nan on the Imperial Airways flying boat to Mandalay, there's nothing quite like cruising at 30,000 feet.
Thank you, Sir Alan.
Interrupted the king. But not even Sir Alan's off-colour reminiscences could dent the monarch's merry mood.
This whole trip has been a welcome tonic,
he announced.
No tonic for me.
Gasped Camilla.
Yeah, thanks, but I'll have my G&T without the tea.
The steward poured the Queen a double measure of tanked up array extra strong gin.
Steady on, old thing, it's a long flight,
admonished Charles.
I think there's still one more leg to go.
Quite.
Confirmed Sir Alan, reading his itinerary from the Foreign Office.
The last stop is a small and rather poor island, once the jewel of the Commonwealth, now a somewhat sad reminder of the glory days of the Empire.
What's it called?
Asked Charles.
Britain.
One of the major cultural debates at the moment is whether one should change the literature of the past to make it reflect current circumstances. And Private Eye says, yes, you have to modernise some old works, and in particular, the work of the Lakeland poets, whose moving descriptions of nature have had to be updated.
Daffodils by William Turdsworth.
I wandered, lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er Windermere, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of turds and diarrhea.
Inside the lake, beneath the trees, festering and stinking in the breeze, continuous in a stream of slime and tinkle in a murky way.
They stretched in never-ending line, like a giant litter tray. 10,000 saw I at a glance, bobbing their heads in shitely dance.
That's quite enough verses. Thank you. And if any of you have got a large water bill that you can't pay from, say, Thames Water, they passed on a tip, which is to say you have huge debts, you borrowed a lot of money from the bank and spent it all on yourself, and you're expecting the government to cover your costs. My favourite cover of the year was when one of the water companies poisoned the water supply. We had two men in hard hats, one of them saying, "What about the parasites?" and the other one saying, "We pay them huge dividends." Anyway, back to sport. This is the other of Private Eye's most popular columns. It's like Dumb Britain, except these are real quotes from real sports commentators. They're sent in by readers, and collated by Simon Edmonds. So thanks to him. We start with Alan Shearer on BBC One.
This is what drives footballers mad. It's the lack of inconsistency.
Rio Ferdinand on TNT Sports.
Old habits die young.
A commentator on Radio 5 Live.
Literally with the last kick of the game, Declan Rice heads one in.
Steve Thompson on Tangerine TV.
He's gestating at the linesman.
Commentator on BBC Radio Scotland.
One of the Motherwell players looks like he's taken an elbow up the far end.
Rio Ferdinand again on TNT Sports.
I thought he'd miss. Not trying to say I'm like Houdini or anything like that, but I did call it.
Ellen White on Radio 5 Live.
Calvin Phillips is not looking around. He is not oblivious of anything.
Alan Shearer on the Rest is Football podcast.
We can't speculate as to why or how or what or all of those things. We just have to guess, don't we?
Jill Scott on Channel 4.
What I love about Esri Konza are his long balls.
Danny Murphy on BBC One.
Cream always rises to the crop.
Leanne Crichton on Radio Scotland.
James Forrest could have been deployed at a right wing back, but that may be a bit left field.
Pat Nevin on Radio 5 Live.
That's the nearest we've come to a goal, apart from the 2 goals that have been scored.
Kelly Summers on BBC One.
Phil Foden is back in the squad after the birth of his partner midweek.
Steve Sidwell, Radio 5 Live.
Villa have certainly taken their foot off the boil.
Karen Carney on ITV.
Gareth Southgate's on his phone to his family or possibly his loved ones.
And again, it's Rio Ferdinand on TNT Sport.
At the moment, he's passing all the question marks with flying colours.
Commentator Balls. Back to politics. We do have a new government and a new chancellor, though she has run into a few problems, not only over her CV, but earlier in the year when it emerged that chunks of her book, The Women Who Made Modern Economics, had been lifted from Wikipedia. We asked Rachel Reeves to reply at the time, and she gave us an exclusive interview.
I have had a long career as a politician, campaigner, civil rights activist, firefighter, astronaut, and pope. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and a king of England too. When I started as an MP, I had a dream. I dreamed a dream in times gone by. I was the first member of my family to go to university. Well, all right. And do you know what I did? I got on my bike and looked for work. The white heat of technology is the most important issue, apart from the pound in your pocket, and education, education, education. And believe me, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat. And I hold in my hand a piece of paper with a message to everyone, a message in a bottle. I'm sending out an SOS to the world. We're sorry to interrupt, but this message will only be up for a short time. We ask you to reflect on the number of times you visited Wikipedia this year and whether you're able to give £2 to the Wikipedia Foundation.
The Labour Party has had its troubles, whereas the Conservative Party has received positive press as it chose a new leader. Tories prove they are the party of diversity.
The election of Kemi Badenoch as Conservative leader shows that it is the Tory party that is leading the way on diversity, and it is not afraid to elect nutters. Badenoch is the third lunatic since 2019 to lead the party, following Johnson and Truss. Said one senior Tory,
"The experiment with electing someone vaguely sane like Rishi Sunak has been consigned to history, and once again the Conservatives have led the way in shattering the padded ceiling of stupidity."
It's also hoped that Badenoch's election will stop the hemorrhaging of traditional Tory fruitcakes to reform. Said Nigel Farage,
No, let me speak. Everyone's welcome. Come on in, with no conditions whatsoever. Hang on a minute. Even I'm not going to fall for that old bollocks. Pint of bark.
It's now time for something more serious. Some stories dominated the news, and in 2024, Private Eye was forced to run the headline, "Shock as news story not about Taylor Swift." But in the end, even we couldn't ignore it and joined in a desperate attempt to get some young readers. So here are 10 things you didn't know about Taylor Swift.
There are like 94 billion sequins on every single Taylor Swift leotard. And if the sun is deflected off her outfit in the opening number, it produces a laser beam that can melt steel.
When her fans all shout encore at the same time, the resultant rush of wind reroutes El Nino to the North Pole and increases the Earth's temperature by 10 degrees.
So the average resale price of a ticket to see Taylor Swift is more than the GDP of Lithuania, Swaziland, and Great Britain combined.
If you lined up all our ex-boyfriends, it would start at John O'Groats and end up at Harry Styles.
Taylor Swift is the great-great-great-grandniece of Jonathan Swift, who inspired her latest album, Tortured Poets Department.
Her parents met in 1984 and named their daughter Taylor after the British literary critic and Orwell biographer D.J. Taylor.
Famous Swifties include the Pope, Anne Widdecombe, and Ayatollah Saeed Ali Hosseini Khamenei, the supreme leader of the Iranian Swiftomaniacs.
If you melted down all her gold discs, you'd be able to fill Fort Knox 20 times over, or replace the fillings in the teeth of all the rappers on the infamous Motherfucker label.
Taylor Swift has filled out more column inches in newspapers than there are sequins on her leotard. See one above.
And we're not going to leave it there, because E.J. Thrib, the poet, the teenage poet, was inspired by the success of Taylor Swift, his fellow poet. And he has written this rather moving poet. This is E.J. Kevin Thrib.
So, farewell then, all my exes. You have let me down and caused me much heartbreak. Yes, I'm talking about you, Denise, who was on my course before I dropped out. And Sandra, who dumped me for Keith's friend Simon, who had a car. And also that girl on Hinge who never turned up. And I had to go and see June 2 on my own. But silver linings, at least my tragic love life has produced beautiful and hopefully best-selling poetry.
A sad moment for E.J. Thrib. It was a year of elections. Vladimir Putin, who's a great fan of democracy, took part in all of them. British, French, American, no elections in Russia this year, but then they have a different system in Russia. You put a cross over the grave of your opponents. Anyway, the big takeaway from politics this year was that populism is still popular. Who would have guessed? You promise the voters whatever they want and tell them if they don't get it, it's someone else's fault. So, here we have the winner of that particular mode of political philosophy, the winner of the US election. And he's now going to set out his plan.
Hello. I'm going to achieve so much. In the first 100 minutes, more than any other president in history, ever. There are going to be bigly changes around here. Bigly. So watch out. Here's what I'm going to do. 1. Stop all wars. I've never started a war, apart from a trade war and a culture war. Oh, and an information war. Then there was the Civil War, which never happened, and which had nothing to do with me. Fact. But I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to end the Ukraine war in a day. I'll leave that to my new Secretary of Defense, Vladimir Putin. A great man, great guy. Great man of vision. He has a vision for a united Europe where all countries are one, called Russia. 2, I'll bring peace to all the troubled regions of the world, especially the countries run by racists, misogynists, and autocrats. They're my kind of guys, great guys. Sure, people say don't deal with the Taliban, and okay, maybe they're not as tough on women as they should be, but, but they're very smart people. They don't like women being seen in public, and Melania agrees. Great girl. 3, I'm going to pardon everyone implicated in the January 6th Stop the Steal Day of Love, starting with me. In no way was I responsible for our brave patriots storming the Capitol after I instructed them to storm the Capitol. Fake news, fake views. 4, RFK Jr. will make America healthy again by starting by banning fluoride. When the kids of tomorrow go to the dentist, it'll be just as I promised in my campaign. Drill, baby, drill. By the way, RFK hates vaccines because his uncle, JFK, he had a bad reaction to a number of shots. True fact. 5, get him out of here. I'll put a top oil man in charge of climate change, someone who really knows everything about drilling and fracking. The late, great J.R. Ewing, senator for South Fork in Dallas. He's not dead. It was all a dream. Fact. Now go buy yourself something beautiful, Melania. Great job.
Thank you to Lewis for Trump. Television is an important cultural medium, and this year's most important offering was undoubtedly Rivals by Jilly Cooper. The Eye has a celebrity interview feature called Me and My Spoon. And Dame Jilly was good enough to give us an interview.
Do you have a favourite spoon?
Yes, I do. I like big ones that I can lick and only just fit in my mouth. Naughty Jilly. Talk about saucy spoons.
Have spoons played a large part in your career?
A large part in my rear. Oh, you are naughty. You're very naughty. There's nothing like handling the firm shaft of a hot spoon. They don't call me Jolly Super for nothing.
Do spoons feature in your new Disney Plus family-friendly show, bonkers.
Oh, yes, very definitely, yes. There are spoons everywhere. Once they've been swiped off the dining room table so our chisel-jawed hero and his game young filly can lay the table in their own special way.
Are people snobby about spoons?
Oh, yes, indeed. You don't want to use the wrong spoon. A fish spoon for eating beef would be a terrible faux pas and require an immediate spanking with a ladle on the bare bottom of a hunky stable boy.
Are there plans for a sequel to your TV Spoonfest, set in the fictional county of Rumpy-Puppyshire?
Oh, of course, yes. People are gagging for it. They can't get enough of it. They're bending over backwards to make another one.
So they're on their knees begging for it.
No need to be vulgar, darling. I am 87, you know.
So it's safe to say you like spooning?
Yes, but only if it leads to forking.
Jolly super. Former leaders, we have a former leader of Scotland who did actually die this year, but we needed a Scottish poet rather than three to record his passing. And the job fell to the official worst poet of all time ever, the great William McGonagall. This is lines on the passing of Alex Salmond, former First Minister of Scotland.
'Twas in the year 2024 that the Grim Reaper came knocking at Alex Salmond's door. A sad end to a man who was such a political force, to die so young, opening a bottle of tomato sauce. And for pedants who point out it was actually ketchup, in my defence, a suitable rhyme is difficult to fetch up. But all over the globe, when the news was broken, tears were shed and tissues were soaken. Even his old enemy got out her hanky. I refer, of course, to Scotland's ex-First Minister and wee look-alike, Jimmy Cranky. She could not, of course, publicly weep and wail, having been quite keen, it is said, to put him in jail. And he was suing the Scots government and Nicola, which would have put them in a bit of a pickle. Role in the matter Alex described as malfeasant. And to find a rhyme for that, well, easy it isn't. But in spite of the near universal chorus of praise, there were some ungracious voices who wanted to raise the matter of his love for the lassies once more, as though this had not been settled in court before. All those supposed beans that had been spilt about what was going on beneath the kilt. But such nitpicking details have no place in this tributary ode. As a loyal bard, I'll take the high, not the low road. Let us all agree that like Bruce, Wallace, Burns and Rob Roy, not to mention Sean Connery, David Tennant and James McAvoy, Alex Salmond was truly a great, great Scot. Or, all things considered, possibly not.
Thanks to William McGonagall. In a tough year, how were the young coping? Since they don't vote often in sufficient numbers, they're usually ignored. But there was a controversial report suggesting that educational standards in the whole higher education UK sector needed looking at. We had the news report.
Mickey Mouse, degree shock!
The celebrated cartoon rodent Mickey Mouse today hit out at university courses which he described as
pointless, silly, and of no value in the real world.
Mr. Mouse was particularly scornful of a course that he described disparagingly as
PPE at Oxford.
Mr. Mouse explained that the course purported to teach students the rudiments of politics, philosophy, and economics, but it in fact did nothing of the sort.
A brief survey of recent graduates makes it clear that PPE is, of course, cynically designed to attract students of the lowest possible abilities and prepare them for nothing more than running the highest offices of the land.
He cited examples such as Rishi Sunak, Matt Hancock, Jeremy Hunt, David Lord Cameron, Liz Truss, and now Rachel Reeves.
I'm not making this up,
he squeaked. Becoming increasingly animated.
These people were allowed to do this joke degree, which left them utterly unqualified to do anything worthwhile. Talk about Dumbo Britain.
Mr. Mickey Mouse. It's time for a final poem from E.J. Thribb, though in a sense they are all final poems. This is In Memoriam Richard Sherman, legendary Disney songwriter.
So, farewell then, Richard Sherman. You are going up into the clouds like Mary Poppins, but without an umbrella. Because, of course, you have wings, like Chitty Chitty, Bang Bang. All your songs were catchy, upbeat, and joyful. They were, what's the word? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And the sound of them was not at all atrocious.
In Memoriam Richard Sherman. A last seasonal story taken from another publication. This is the Bohemian Times, dated December the 25th, 935 AD.
King Wenceslas scraps winter fuel allowance.
By our political staff, Carol Christmas.
The reputation of good King Wenceslas is under attack tonight over his controversial plans to ban yonder peasant from collecting winter fuel. The king, good Keir Wenceslas, got the idea for his money-saving policy when he looked out on the Feast of Stephen and saw a poor man gathering winter fuel. He proclaimed,
"Frankly, I don't care if the snow is falling deep and crisp and even. And if the poor man's blood is freezing coldly, there's a big black hole in the Bohemian government's finances. And I'm not having every yonder peasant who comes in sight helping themselves to free firewood."
the winter fuel ban has been compared to the frost that night, i.e. cruel. But good Keir Wenceslas is unrepentant and blames the previous king for creating an enormous deficit of tinder. Yonder peasant said,
"The cost of flesh and wine has gone up hugely, and I'm thinking, frankly, of not following in his footsteps. I think he's a bit of a bastard."
According to one political commentator,
this has gone down very badly in the polls, and good King Wenceslas really needs to look out.
Thank you for that groan. I gather we're running over time, but sorry, we cannot not finish without a regular private eye feature. It's a letter to the Daily Telegraph from Sir Herbert Gusset, a frequent letter writer.
"Sir, I write with reference to the story about television personality Kirsty Allsop's 15-year-old son, who has spent 3 weeks travelling Europe without adult supervision, and the shock and dismay this has caused. It is a long way from my own experience during the summer holidays of 1936. We were encouraged in those days to make our own fun, and consequently I and 2 chums travelled that summer to Central Europe, thinking it might be rather fun to assassinate Adolf Hitler. We were trusted entirely by the adults to whom we suggested the plan, and experienced no mollycoddling as we put ourselves together with our supplies of boat, tent, rifles, high explosives, cyanide capsules, etc. Nobody dreamed of reporting our parents to social services. Whilst ultimately unsuccessful, and whilst my 2 friends sadly perished as we returned at high speed across the English Channel, I myself returned unharmed, apart from the loss of a leg due to the actions of an irritating Messerschmitt. Naturally, Nurse made a huge fuss about it at the start of the next school term. However, it was a golden summer, and one of which the kid-glove younger generation today could hardly conceive. I remain Sir Herbert Gusset.
We end as we began with notes and queries, and this is an encore from a previous year. It is a notes and queries, someone writing in to ask who or what is the Badenoch. The Badenoch, of course, is the fictional creature from Lewis Carroll's favourite poem, The Badenochie. And tonight we have Sir Ian McKellen with us to reprise his version of The Badenochie.
Well, 'twas Kemi and the slimy gophs did quasi-quartings gimble thus. All mordaunt were the Tugend hats, and the Nadim Rishis outgrabe Truss. Beware the Badenoch, my son. The flaws that bite, the boars that catch. Beware the javid bird, and shun the frumious Maggie Thatch.
Ladies and gentlemen, the cast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed for coming. And can I have one last round of applause for this incredible cast?